Now let's start by exploring the Edit tab. The Edit tab is divided into multiple sections. The first button to the top left here allows us to hide or show the media pool. This is the media pool. It contains all the files we already imported into this project and is divided into two sections. On the left here, you have access to our bins, whether our normal bins or smart bins. And to the right, we can see the files we already imported into this project. On the top, we have this slider that allows us to change the preview size of our thumbnails. And these two buttons here allows us to switch between thumbnail view or list view, and we can scroll through list view to see more information about our files. Let's get back to thumbnail view. Then we have search icon here. It allows us to search through our files. Then we have this button here. If we click it, we open the effects library. Note that when we open the effects library, it occupied the lower half of the left panel. So the left panel can be shared between two windows. If I close the media pool now the entire left panel is dedicated to the effects library. The effects library allows us to add all sorts of effects to our project and is divided into three sections. First, you have the toolbox. This is where we have access to video transitions. So if I click here, these are the video transitions I have in the system. Then we have audio transitions, titles. So on top of the standard titles, we also have the new Fusion titles here. Then we have generators. This is where we can generate things like solid colors, for example. The next section is Open Effects. These are extra effects that can be added to DaVinci Resolve with a lot of effects that comes built in with Resolve. So things like blurs, lens flares, and a lot of other effects. Note that you can also add third-party effects to Resolve. Next, we have audio effects. These are Fairlight effects. And again, you can use third-party effects. The effects on top are built into Resolve 15. However, the effects on the bottom are effects added to my system. So if you are on a different system, you might not see these effects here. Let's close the effects library. Then we have the edit index. This is simply our EDL. So all the edit decisions Resolve is using to build our timeline. Let's close the edit index. The next window is Sound Library. This is where you guide Resolve to the folder on your system that contains all your sound effects and music. So you can browse the music and sound effects on your system before you actually import the files into this project. So all the files that will appear here are files that are on your system but not yet added to this particular Resolve project. This is extremely beneficial if you have a lot of music and sound effects on your system, like thousands of files, and you want to be able to browse through them without needing to import all these files into Resolve. Let's close the sound library and open the media pool again. Then in the middle here, we have the source monitor. This monitor allows us to preview our files and determine which part of the file we want to add to our timeline. Note that the source monitor will show us the content of a file once we hover over it. But note that once we hover off of a file, it will go back to the original file that was loaded into the monitor. In order to load a file permanently into the source monitor, we have to double click on a file. So note that now I'm loading C0009. Once I hover over C008, the source monitor is showing me a preview for the file. However, once I hover off of it, we're back to viewing C009. To load 008 permanently, I have to double click on it, and now it's permanently loaded into the monitor, and I can set my in and out points. To the top left here, we have a drop-down menu that gives us zoom options. Currently it's set to fit, and for example, I can set it to 200. Note that once you zoom into an image, in order to move the image around, you have to use the middle mouse button. Let's go back to fit. And to the top right here, I have extra options for the source monitor. The most important ones are show zoomed audio waveform and show full clip audio waveform. This clip at the moment doesn't have any audio attached to it. So let's select this clip now. And once I select a clip that has audio and video, I have this new icon here. This icon allows me to drag and drop only the audio portion of my video or only the video portion. However, if I come back to the options on top here, I can select show full clip audio waveform, and this will show me the waveform of the audio attached to this clip. And if I switch to show zoomed audio waveform, it's the same thing. It will only show me a zoomed in view of the waveform. Let's uncheck the option. Then we have the options to the bottom. This is where we can scrub through our footage, and we have a drop down menu here where we can select, for example, source, which is what's being selected now. It's showing us the video and the audio, or we can switch to audio track, so it will only show us the audio of the film. Note that the audio preview is split into two sections. The top section here shows shows us the entire waveform, so our entire track, and the one at the bottom is a zoomed in audio waveform. Then we can switch to multicam. This is something that we'll be discussing later. Let's get back to source. Then we have this controller here. This allows us to scrub frame by frame through our footage. So if I click on this icon and keep on holding the mouse button down, now I can scrub one frame at a time to the right and left by simply moving the mouse left or right. For example, note that if I want to select a particular point here, it's kind of tricky using the scrubbing tool here. However, if I click on this icon, keep on holding it down, now I can move one frame at a time regardless of how long my clip is. Then we have the transport controls and match frame, which we'll be discussing later, and this is where we can set in and out points. So for example, if I wanted to select a particular portion of this clip to be added to my timeline, I can go to the first frame of the section I want to add, and I can click this icon, creating an in point. Then I can move to the end of the part I want to add to the timeline and click this icon, creating an out point. So now I have an in and an out point, which means that whenever I drag this file into the timeline, only this portion of the file will be added into the timeline.